All right, great.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Irene. I'm going to mute everybody, and then when you want to speak, you can unmute yourself or raise your hand and I'll see you, or Mira will see you and we'll unmute you. So today we're going to do a lovely lesson that's a little bit gentler and slower than the lessons that we've been doing. And it's all about, do you know where your pelvis is in relationship to your feet? And the result of it is this lovely floaty, glidey feeling as we're walking. So what's going to be different about this lesson is that the focus isn't so much on what I ask you to do, but on the sensations that you feel while you're doing it. So you know the Nike slogan, just do it. That's not what we're trying to do in Feldenkrais. We're trying to sense what we do as we do it. And it doesn't so much matter if you do exactly what I'm saying. If you're paying attention to the sensations, that is what helps your brain discover new possibilities in the movement. It's going to be a lot of standing today. And if the standing bothers you, feel free to sit down. And when I notice people sitting down, then I'll give everybody a break. So you can tell me when you want a break by just sitting. So to start with, stand up and walk around in your space a little bit, sensing as you walk how your feet take the weight. So when one foot goes to the other, your feet are going to take the weight. And if walking is hard for you, you can do this in your chair, sitting in your chair, lifting and moving your sit bones. And notice how your spine feels as you walk. And the quality of your patience and curiosity this morning. So your readiness to look inward. And then come and stand in front of the computer. And as you stand, notice the contact of your feet with the floor. And there's a way as you stand, if you're patient, you can feel your attention kind of flow down your body to settle into your feet. And it takes a moment before, oh yeah, there are my feet. And if you were standing on two scales, which foot would you be heavier on? So we almost never have exactly the same amount of weight on our right foot and our left. There's always both a little unevenness and a little bit of sway back and forth. See if you can feel that sway. You can see it when we look at each other online. You can see the shoulders move a little bit. The absolute hardest thing for a human being is to sit totally still or stand totally still. And you have some sort of habit of how you shift the weight in this little sway. See if on one side, if you come a little forward when you come onto that foot a little bit more. And on one side, you might find yourself going backward a little bit. Most of us have a little bit of a diagonal pattern to the sway. And just for a moment, try and hold still. You know, you have the 4-year-old in the room and it's like, will you please just hold still, and hold yourself still for a moment and see where do you grab, what contracts to hold still, and then let it go and be unstill, be normal. Do a little bit of moving around. And then hold still again and feel, is it in your feet? Is it in your calves or your thighs? Or hold your breath? Something tightens in your neck? What's your unique pattern of holding still? If you wanted to teach somebody to hold still, just like you're holding still now, where would you tell them to hold? And then let it go so that you are swaying again. And notice what let go. Okay, great. And now go for a little walk, just to not be thinking for a moment. And come back to standing. And you can stand behind your chair if you'd like, so you have something to hold on to. We're going to be making just small little movements, but if having the chair there makes you feel more secure, that is just fine. And this time as you're standing, stand with your feet 1 inch wider than you usually do. And begin shifting your weight into your left foot and then come back to neutral. And as you shift your weight into your left foot, what does your pelvis do? Where in your left foot does the weight go? Does it go into the front or into your heel or both? Does it go into the big toe or the little toe? What does your knee do? What does your left knee do when your weight shifts into your left foot? And then go to with your weight on the left foot and freeze yourself there. Hold still on your left foot. And what has to hold to keep you on your left foot? And then let go of the hold and shift back. And then begin to explore that on the right side. So as you shift to the right, what does your pelvis do? What does your knee do? What does your head do? Do you lead on the right? Does your chin get there first, or does the top of your head get there? You could try both, deliberately leading with your chin to get over your right foot, or lead with the top of your head to get over your right foot. And one of those might take you a little backward and one a little forward. And what happens in your right foot as the weight goes on it? Does your foot feel like it flattens? Does it get longer? Do your toes curl up? Do they curl down? See what your pattern is. And then begin to shift left and right. And see what's different. Does your chin lead when you go one way and the top of your head lead when you go the other way? And do a little experimenting. Let's experiment on the left side for a minute. Once let your chin lead to get over your foot and feel how your foot takes the weight, how your knee takes the weight. And then lead with the top of your head to go to the left. Like you wanted to butt something up there with your head. And see how your foot takes the weight and your sense of, go back and forth, once your chin, once the top of your head. And which feels nicer, more fluid, more powerful, stabler? Which feels nicer in your knee? And you know by now, some of the questions you're going to go, oh yeah, that's clear. And some of them, it's just the process of asking that matters because the answer doesn't come so clearly. Now on your right foot, alternate leading with your chin and leading with the top of your head. And they ask different things of your spine, of whether your spine curves a little or is straight. And then just rest in the middle for a moment. And now just go to the right and see, when you go to the right, do you lead with your chin or your head? Which is your pattern? So there's no right and wrong, just what do you actually do when you go to the right? And then when you shift to the left, what's your pattern? Is it the top of the head or the chin? And now on the right, if you found your pattern, if your pattern is leading with your chin, try leading with your head. If your pattern is leading with your head, try leading with your chin. Just so that you can distinguish that they're different. And go back to the left and do what came naturally, and then try the other. Good. And then walk around a little bit. Just to take a little break. Okay, and come back to standing. And take your feet that inch apart more than usual. And begin shifting your weight to the left again. And this time, as your weight comes into your left foot, see if your right heel gets a little lighter. And then as you shift into your right foot, how your left heel can get a little lighter. Okay. And now we're going to do something strange, which is shift to the right. But as you shift right, try and press harder with your left foot. So you shift right, but the weight stays in the left. And it may mean that you turn a little bit to the right when you do that. So by leaving your weight in your left foot, you can shift a little to the right. Good. And then try shifting left, but as you shift left, keep your weight in your right foot, which will make you turn to the left a little. Good. And then try and keep your weight as even as you can on the left and the right foot, but turn a little bit to the left and the right, trying to keep the weight even in your feet. Go slow, because you'll be able to sense better where your pelvis is if you are going slow. You'll need to bend a knee if you want to keep the weight even and shift your weight and turn and look one way. A knee's going to have to bend. And then walk a little bit. Just see if there's just a little taste of your pelvis being more over your feet as you're walking. That there's a way that the pelvis has to move a little left and right to come over the foot that you stand on. And then come back to standing. And take your legs 1 inch a little further apart than you've been standing. So we're now at like 2 inches wider than, okay. And keeping your right knee straight, lift your right heel. And feel how that puts you over on your left and it makes you get a little taller. So do that and undo it a few times. You keep the right knee straight, you lift your right heel, and for every inch it lifts, your head goes up 1 inch. Okay? Now we're going to do something different, which is lift your heel as you bend your right knee. So you lift your right heel, you bend your right knee, and so you don't get taller. And then go back to lifting the heel with the knee straight so you get taller. Just to feel the difference between those two. And go back and forth to make sure it's really clear when you're getting taller and when you're not. So if the knee is straight, you're taller. And if you've sat down to take a break here, you can do the same thing in sitting with your lifting your heel and with your leg, knee soft or not soft. And then let's try this on the left. So you lift your left heel with your left knee straight and you get taller on your right side. You try that a few times. And then you try lifting your left heel and bending your left knee. Go back and forth between those on the left side. So we have the left knee is either straight or bent. And then we're going to alternate. So bend your left knee and with your knee bent. So you lift your left knee and lift up your left heel and then put that down and do the same thing on the right. So it's this kind of little shifting left and right, which you can do in sitting or standing. And then in standing, bend your right knee and lift your right heel, and then take a step forward with that foot. So to lift the foot, you bend the knee, lift the heel, and then take a little step forward. And you can slide it back and do it again. It's a funny little step thing. And try it on the left, where you bend your left knee, lift your left heel, and take your foot a little forward. And then go for a little walk. And just see if there's something a little different in your walk after this play. Some sense of how your knees lift a little and how you fold in the middle to take a step. And then sit in your chair, rest for a minute. And all these play things that we're doing are things that you can sit, you're bored, you're waiting for something, you're waiting for the water to boil as you're making your tea or coffee. You can play with lifting a heel, lifting a toe, sensing where it moves in the rest of yourself. And getting playful and curious widens the bandwidth in your brain for communicating. One of my friends who is a Feldenkrais practitioner in New York City is the one who I got this particular lesson from, and he commuted by subway. And so these are all things he would do while standing on the subway in order to not be bored on his trip to and from work. And the nice thing is you can do them so small that nobody notices you're playing with your knee or your foot or your hip. But it's that curiosity that helps keep you limber. Okay, stand up again. And stand with your feet just an inch or so wider than usual. And this time, stand with your left foot a little bit in front of your right foot. So your feet are kind of, if you look up on the screen from my hands, they're left and one's just a little behind the other, with the right foot a little behind the left. And now begin to shift your weight from your right foot behind you to your left foot and back again. And feel how your pelvis has to move on a diagonal, kind of. Sometimes you might feel it shift to the side and then go forward like a letter L. Or you might take a shortcut diagonally. And where do your eyes look when you're shifting your weight forward and back? Now I'm going to add a little constraint to this. Keep your back heel down. And if you want to keep your back heel down and still shift your weight forward, your belly is going to have to turn over your front foot a little bit. So there's this little coming forward and turning, and then as you go back, it's like an unwinding. And notice if there's like a place that you rush over. Many of us, like, I'm comfortable on my left foot, I'm comfortable on my right foot, and somewhere in between is a little scary. And so you go zoom to get from one to the other. See if you can slow it down a little bit and feel how the pattern of how the weight goes into one foot and then the other. Our pelvis is happiest if it's over a foot, if there's support for it wherever it's going. As soon as you take your pelvis where it's not over a foot, that's when you get unstable. Okay, and then shift your feet so your right foot's in front and your left is behind. And begin shifting your weight up onto this foot. See if it's easier on this side. You can always put a hand on a chair if you need it for balance. And then begin seeing if you can keep your left heel down as you do this, which is going to make your belly turn to be over your right foot. So this idea is kind of like when you learn how to drive, you have to learn how to stay in your own lane. And our pelvis has to learn how to stay in the lane with our feet. So that's what we're thinking, that it's this deliberate lane change. I'm changing lanes. I was in the left lane and I'm changing into the right lane. And just like in a car, to do that, you have to turn the wheel. In our body, we have to turn our belly and our chest in order to help our pelvis change lanes. Okay, go for a little walk again. And as you walk, let your back heel linger behind you a little. So you keep your back heel down a little longer than usual as you shift weight. And you could try, as you're walking, walk in ultra slow motion. So you really feel the weight shift and the belly move onto one foot. And then the weight shift, you bring the other foot forward, and then the weight shift and the pelvis follows the foot. So that's slow motion, being aware of when is the pelvis over the foot. And then come and sit down for a moment. And I'm curious, as you were walking there, did it feel different than usual? Is there a different sense of floatiness in your legs and feet? Or I'm curious, raise your hand and I'll unmute you. I'd like to hear a few people talk about what they sense in their walking after this. Jerry. Whoops, it's not letting me unmute you, Jerry. I think you got to do yourself. There you go.
When I was keeping my heel down, I felt less stable when I was walking, and that transition from the heel being down longer to the next step, there was
yeah. So when the heel is down, that's more like a drill, and it forces you to find something else in your torso and shoulders to try to fight for the stability. And then when you walk normally where your heel is lifting, you have a little bit more in your body available to make that transition. So that's a good point. That is not something, all these variations that we do are not you must try to think of all of these while you're walking. But the constraints help your body find new possibilities.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else want to share anything they noticed in their walking? Rich, or is that Noel? Noel. Let me unmute. You're going to have to unmute yourself.
Okay.
There you go.
When you walk and you're carrying a heavy pack, when you stop, you almost float away if you take the pack off. It feels like there's nothing to
Yes.
hold you down.
That's the whole idea of constraints, which is something we use in Feldenkrais a lot, is that when you take the constraint off, you sense something different.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, let's stand up again. And take your feet a little wider, even wider than we've been doing. And bring your hands to your knees by taking your bottom and sending it backwards. So you're beginning to come down into a little bit of a squat. Come back up. And with the front of your knees, aim out over your second toe as you come down to a little bit of a squat. And you might, after this lesson, have a little sensation that when you're squatting a little with your knees aiming out, that your knees are lifting up off the floor, that there's a sense of upness in the knees. And the bottom has to go back to counterbalance the top of you. So it's a different feeling than collapsing into the knees. There's this sense of like the floor is pushing up into the knees. And this ability to come up out of the knees, that the feet, because the pelvis is so lined up over the feet, is what makes walking feel light and powerful and graceful. So come back up to stand, or you are standing, and walk around a little bit. And as you walk and you come, we're going to do the slow motion walk again. So one foot's behind the other, you come up over the front foot. Sense if you get taller when you get there. And try for that sensation. So step and get taller as you turn your belly and come over the foot. So there's an up and a turn and an up on each step. And come back to standing. And shift your weight from left to right again. And see, do you get taller when you get over to the side, or do you get shorter? And there's a way that you've got your hip in the socket, and if you're right on top of the hip joint, you get taller. And if you go a little too far over, you get shorter. So if I'm going to aim this at my middle, if I kind of jut the hip out, try jutting your hip out to the side, and you'll feel how you get shorter. Or if you lift up to get taller. And then go for that little walk, one foot transferring to the other, where you get taller and then taller and taller. And by the pelvis always being right over the knee and the foot, there's stability. Now, I don't know if those of you were, let's play for a moment and imagine that you were, well, how many people here do boxing? Do the boxing for, okay. So play with some of the moves that you do to get your feet to one side in order to be in the right place to punch. And see how your pelvis flows over your feet. So you take a big step in any direction. Or you could imagine skating or gliding, but you take the step and then your pelvis comes along and the other leg helps it get there. And you can step even backwards. As long as your pelvis goes with you, then you're stable. And do you think about leading with your pelvis or do you think about leading with your foot? Try leading with your pelvis. So you start to send your pelvis in a direction and then the foot just catches you as soon as the pelvis goes over there. Yeah. All righty, come and have a seat. And let's just play, whoops. Let me get back in the picture. Play with, in sitting, that same thing, since we all are spending a little bit more time sitting these days than, and in sitting, come to the front of your chair, knees wide, and shift a little left and right. And notice in sitting, do you go diagonally forward on one leg and back on the other side as you shift left and right? And a few times play with the other diagonal and it'll feel really weird. And then hold still in sitting. And in sitting, where do you grab to hold still? And then see if you can let that part of you go so that you can gently sway as you're sitting, just like when you're standing. Our bodies are happier when they're in constant motion. Good. And now close your eyes for a moment and check in with yourself for how's your mood, your sense of calmness. For people who experience a lot of dyskinesias, sometimes this deliberate play of deliberately swaying and playing with small movements like we have actually can calm things down a little bit. But for me, every time I do a lesson like this, my emotional side calms down, which is helpful when you're trying to go to sleep or getting anxious about what's going on in the world. These lessons can calm things. And know that Mira and Jordan have been doing a great job of keeping them posted on the Northwest Parkinson's website. So if you want to come back to it, you can come back. All right, let's open the floor for discussion of if you have questions, things you're hoping I'll address, observations, ways you're using this stuff in your daily life.
I have a question.
Yeah, Cindy.
For some reason, when something is hard for me to do, my left wing comes up. Like, I'll notice I'm walking and it's hard and this comes up.
So because your body has a pattern where it tilts to the right a little bit, the left wing is your brain's way of going, I don't want to let her fall to the right. I'm going to bring up my wing. And so you can say, thank you, body, for having a good strategy for keeping me from tipping over. At the same time, you can learn other strategies of maybe moving your ribs over or shifting your weight all the way onto that foot. But yeah, so these patterns are not just random patterns. They are, the whole purpose of a human brain is to keep us from falling over. And our brains come up with creative ways to do that. Al.
Oh, actually, we have something in the chat class. It's saying, Colleen is saying, yeah, the videos currently are not on our website yet.
Yeah, they are. If you go to the participate, nwpf.org/participate, that has all the online classes and it now has the videos on it.
So I think our marketing person may have put that up this week. Some of them were, but we do directly get them onto YouTube pretty quickly, and then they're slowly coming onto our website.
So both places now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Al.
Yeah. So my wife keeps saying, "Can't you sit still?" And I've got to keep moving. So that's pretty normal, moving.
Everybody, even your wife, moves a little as she's sitting still. Sometimes with Parkinson's, because the communication is less coming from your body, you end up moving bigger because that's the only way your body can feel the movement and know it's there. And so just tell her, no, this is normal.
I don't know if she'll buy it enough.
A question. There's dyskinesias, and then there's a separate, it's called akastasia, when you just have to keep moving.
It is, I think, on the spectrum of that we all, whether you have Parkinson's or not, do involuntary movements, and they get bigger. And sometimes people find they get some calmness from it after doing a lesson. But if you try, like when you were trying to hold yourself still and you feel all the parts of you tense up, for me, those are the parts that I'm most likely to be sore in if I overly tense. So by trying to hold back and prevent those movements, I think you're just going to cause yourself pain. So I don't think my personal view is that it's like holding on tight is not going to serve you well.
It serves others though, because others tell me they're getting seasick. So people don't like
problem. Other
people don't like dyskinesias.
I think having to live inside a body with dyskinesias is worse than having to look at it, because you can always look away. They can, catch you out of the corner of their eye.
Right.
I'm curious how many people have had DBS surgery. I know I have, and it's been very successful for me.
For dyskinesias and
for tremors.
For tremors, okay. How about raise your hand big if you've had deep brain stimulations. Not so many in this group. Oh, that's good. Now we know Ron's our expert on that one.
Yeah, we will hopefully be presenting a webinar on our, we'll be presenting Hope Educationals online, and DBS or deep brain simulation will be one of the topics, hopefully coming up in the next few weeks.
Ron, how long ago did you have it?
I had it in November. I had the system turned on in the latter part of December. And I'm scheduled to go in and have an adjustment of this Pelvis thing. The doctor has postponed the adjustment till end of May. It's virtually taken the tremors away from me and allows me to sleep at night much easier for me.
So that's exciting. That's, yeah.
Great news.
The panel that you're having, I've been diagnosed 15 years and I've been to a lot of DBS panels and there has never been a woman on it.
Really? That is interesting. We'll make a note of this.
Mhm.
Well, this will be a presenter who began, but I will make
That'd be cool if there's a presenter to have a few people who have the experience to talk about it, because I think that's
Yeah.
what it's
Yeah.
nice to hear, that these are other human beings like me who have done this, like Ron, who have gotten good benefit.
They've always been presenters with patient panels and I've been to like 15 of them, never a woman patient.
Wow.
Here, I have a friend who has had it, and I'll give you her name for contacting.
I'm not having it, so.
Oh,
I was wondering, when we did the exercise where we tip our head and tip our chin to one side, I noticed that I don't seem to do either. I kind of make it straight. Is it better to do one or the other?
our body needs to have the ability to do all three of those. Just as you're sitting there, try taking your face straight and see what that asks of the rest of you. Okay, and come back. Everybody can try this. And then try taking your chin, and it asks something different in your belly. And then try taking your forehead. If you tip and you have the little chin, you can go further without feeling unstable. If you have your face and your neck very still, you get over there and there's a little, like, I feel like I'm balanced on this tippy point. Whereas if I have my chin over a little more, I can use my ribs to give me some more options in the balance.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, but that's a great observation, because that's something that by playing just as you're sitting around, explore, what does it take to tip my head a little bit? What has to move in my chest, in my rib cage to do that? And by playing with that, then your body will find it a little easier in walking.
Okay.
And Cindy, Laura just put up on the chat to say that the Davis Finney Foundation had a DBS webinar yesterday, which had a woman patient, and one of the doctors was also female. So onto YouTube or onto their website as well, if you wanted to follow up.
Thank you. Yay, Davis Finney. I have another question is, when we're not moving correctly, which we're not, but when it's worse than other times, is it a good or bad idea to do your strengthening or your exercises when you're, it's your, when
Yeah,
you're moving?
great question. If you want to practice this Feldenkrais stuff, should you practice it when you're off or when you're on?
Or when you want to do your cardio, your strengthening, your weights?
Your weights, and I think when you're on, because when you're having an on time, that's when the communication is best with your body. And when you're having an off time and you try and do it, you're more likely to hurt yourself, and it's just more likely to end up in frustration than in benefit.
And I wonder, if you do that, does it reinforce the misalignment if you're exercising when you're, for me, like when I'm more tipped over?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
And we're also getting a question in, Irene, saying, are we going to cover the toe curling and the splaying sometime?
Yes. I think that's what next week I'm going to focus on the connection between shoulders and feet. And that's where we're going to get into the toe stuff, because the toes curl or splay as an attempt to hold us in place when it's actually when you're not getting your pelvis over. So I think, Scott, really focus this week on where's your pelvis in space in relationship to your feet, and see if that helps relax the curling and splaying. But I'll work with it more on next Tuesday. Okay. Let's call that done for today. Have fun with this glidey feel and the pelvis over the feet in the course of this next week. And see you on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Irene.
You're welcome.
Thank you.